All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It just hit the top of the hour, and I just want to welcome all of you and thank you, just in a preliminary fashion, for joining us here today. Um, we're so happy to have you, and we are going to be talking about Atlassian Intelligence today. And with that, let's start off with some introductions, and I'll let Joshua introduce himself first.
Yeah, so I'm Joshua Dimitri. I am a software development manager at Valiantis. So I spend a lot of my time talking with customers, talking about custom solutions and how to kind of build applications to aid their tools, but also with things like Atlassian Intelligence, how to integrate them into their internal processes, and especially talking about architecture across the enterprise, how to tie all those things together. So I'm going to add some context from that.
That's awesome. Thanks, Joshua. Yeah, and just briefly, my name is Sam Ayers. I'm a delivery manager here at Valiantis North America. As my title suggests, I work more on the delivery side of things, so work very closely with clients to implement solutions with and outside of the Atlassian suite of tools. So happy to be with you guys here today, or be with you guys here today. Cool. So, just before I go any further, I wanted to provide some information just about Valiantis and just give you a sense of who we are and what we do if you're not familiar with us. So, just kind of rapid fire here. We have worked directly with, and have been a partner with Atlassian rather for over 16 years. We are one of three global partners with Atlassian, and we have over 2,000 total customers worldwide. And we are proudly, we're proud of the fact that we're a 12-time Atlassian Partner of the Year award winner. Just some quick statistics to throw out there. We have 52% more certified consultants than the second partner. In other words, I think maybe what's more important is that we have a lot of people within the organization who know what they're talking about when it comes to the Atlassian ecosystem. We're a platinum solutions partner with Atlassian. And if you don't know what a solutions partner is in general, um, solutions partners have a deep understanding of Atlassian products, as well as experience in implementing and customizing these products for our clients, which is where Joshua comes into on the customization side in our custom development wing. This also means that we provide a series of services. So, not excluded to obviously Atlassian Consulting. So, our consulting services specialize, as I said, in the full suite of Atlassian tools, and we cater to organizations of all kinds of sizes. We offer training. We provide extensive training programs, and that ranges from paid to free content, kind of like what you're talking about or what you're experiencing now in this webinar. But we also offer separate Jira boot camps specifically for Jira software users. We have a boot camp for Jira service management. We also have a boot camp for Confluence. And then also, most recently, a boot camp for Jira Aligned or Jira Align. And really, honestly, these boot camps are designed for Jira admins, those administrating all the aforementioned tools. We offer agile and safe training. So if you're exploring agility or kind of spinning up in that space, we can help you out. And then we have what we call our Atlassian user academies, which are juxtaposed to the boot camps that I just mentioned, which are more for Jira admins. We have our user academies, which are tailored for everyday users. So basically, our training encompasses anyone and everybody who would be using Atlassian tools wherever they're at in the organization. And then, as Joshua alluded to, and as I mentioned as well, one of our wings of business is our custom development wing. And so we have in-house software developers that create customized solutions spanning from app development to crafting unique user interfaces that kind of live on top of Jira. And actually, I think Joshua may have an example of one of those later on to kind of talk about. But the short version of that, to just sum up custom development, is if you have, or if the solution you need doesn't exist, we can help with that. All right. So let me jump to our next slide. So that's enough about us. Let's talk about what we plan on covering during the webinar today. So we're going to talk about what is Atlassian Intelligence. We're going to cover some pricing information And then we're going to dig into some demonstrations of some of the features of Atlassian Intelligence. We'll talk about some of the features that are coming soon or soon to come down the pipeline. And then we'll talk about, or have Joshua actually talk about, Atlassian Intelligence with regard to custom solutions. And then also we'll just kind of talk about upcoming webinars and then hopefully leave some time for Q&A at the end. All right, so just a quick heads up. If you have any questions as we're just kind of trucking through content here, hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom session, and then feel free to drop your questions in as we progress. We will tackle them at the end of the session. Ideally, we like to leave anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to kind of go over some of those questions. So please don't hesitate. Don't forget, obviously, your question. Feel free to just throw them in the chat as we're going. It's not going to distract us or throw us off. All right. So as promised, let's start with just talking about Atlassian Intelligence on a high level. And really, I kind of want to answer the questions of what is it, and then ultimately, how does it work? So on a high level, Atlassian Intelligence helps teams accelerate their work, increase efficiency, and provide value faster using artificial intelligence. For example, it allows you to generate and transform content. It allows you to summarize critical details. It allows you to find the work you need fast. Those are kind of the big three, but there's much more that it can do, and we'll hopefully delve into some of that in just a little bit. Atlassian Intelligence leverages artificial intelligence developed internally and from OpenAI. So internally, by that, I mean within Atlassian. It uses the teamwork graph, which is unique to your team's project or service work, along with internal language models and OpenAI to deliver results specific to your organization's context. And I want to stress that it's specific to your organization's context. So you may be asking yourself, or at least the second question I have up here, which is, that's great, but how does it all work? So Atlassian Intelligence combines state-of-the-art models developed by OpenAI with the power and data inside the Atlassian platform. So this means that Atlassian provides a native artificial intelligence experience that is contextual to you, your teams, and your workflows, all in a way that respects the privacy of your data. That's also something I want to emphasize. And that's actually, that last statement, respecting your privacy and data, is a perfect segue into what I want to talk about next briefly, which is tech and data security. So there, as we all know, there's a lot of uncertainty around AI nowadays, and we want to address one of the more prevalent questions that we get from clients and just prevalent questions that we've been seeing come in as this tool has been introduced. And that is, how is the data I put into the tool being handled? So I will say on the outset that Atlassian Intelligence is an opt-in only feature within the Atlassian tool set. And what I mean by that is you actually have to intentionally toggle it either on or off at the org admin level. So the highest level of permission you can have within Atlassian tools, an org admin would have to switch this on. And so one other thing to mention as well that's really important, you can switch on Atlassian Intelligence on a tool by tool basis. So what I mean by that is within Jira software, maybe you found that the tool isn't as helpful, or your development teams, for example, aren't using it. But in Confluence, it really helps you guys summarize meeting notes or pull out action items from meeting notes. You can totally do that. You can keep it flipped off in Jira software. You can keep it flipped on in Confluence. So that's also something really important that I want to mention. Inputs aren't stored. So none of the inputs or outputs from AI are stored or used by Atlassian or their partners to train their models. So inputs and outputs in this case refer to, as you can surmise, I'm sure, the data that your users are typing into Atlassian products, which are in turn analyzed by Atlassian Intelligence. So none of your inputs and outputs are stored. It respects permissions and data residency. So Atlassian Intelligence respects all existing permissions and data residency. So an example would be Atlassian Intelligence is going to respect whether you have access to the Jira issues you're searching for. So while you may be able to unilaterally use AI to query issues based on what you type into the prompt, you're still only going to be able to see what you have permissions to see within Atlassian tools. All the data is processed and transmitted in accordance with Atlassian's privacy policy, data processing addendum, and then also the GDPR commitment. One important note, it doesn't support SOC 2, ISO, or HIPAA. So just keep that in mind if those are kind of non-starters for you in your organization. And then last, it leverages OpenAI. So Atlassian Intelligence does currently leverage large language models from OpenAI. Each data request, however, is sent to OpenAI individually over an SSL encrypted service to process and send back to Atlassian. So just to kind of tie it all up in a nice bow, Atlassian has heard the public, and they're being very, very careful and very, very clear on how the data is being handled. So I appreciate personally the level of transparency, and hopefully that might ease any trepidation you might be feeling with, oh, do I really want Atlassian Intelligence or AI operating within my Atlassian suite of tools? Okay, let's just talk briefly about pricing and packaging options. One thing to really kind of highlight is that AI or Atlassian Intelligence is a cloud-only feature. I actually pulled this screenshot directly off of Atlassian's website. And so just keep that in mind. Data center users, sorry, you got to be on cloud to use it. It's only available for premium and enterprise users. So there was a beta window where standard folks or people that were on the standard licensing tier could use it for a while. That expired over the summer. And so it truly is only available at the premium and enterprise tier licensing level. So also something to take into consideration. And then currently, there are no limits on usage. However, we expect limits to be added in the future. So not dissimilar to ChatGPT, there's going to be some limits on usage applied. So take advantage while you can for now. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into Atlassian Intelligence and demonstrate some of its functionality. And we're going to start by looking at some more of the prominent features, I would say, within Jira. So with that, let me exit out of my presentation here and jump to the project we'll be demoing in. So for this demonstration, I created a fictional Jira project, obviously, and then a fictional Confluence space for a marketing team that's going to be launching a campaign to promote Atlassian Intelligence as a product. And just to kind of highlight one of the biggest things that we see folks leveraging more often than not is the fact that Atlassian Intelligence allows one to generate and transform content. On a high level, you can create content based on a prompt. You can rephrase content that you highlight, and then you can also restructure it. So let's look at an example of each of those things that I just mentioned. Creating content based on a prompt, rephrasing content, and then also restructuring it. So let's go into one of the issues on our board. This is a Jira work management project. If you're not familiar, this is something that a marketing team could potentially use. And I'm looking at the description right now on this particular issue. And the description is fine. Upgrade to billing system now requires us to launch a new marketing campaign. However, I would argue that this description, and ultimately it's up to your teams and how detailed you want to get with your issue descriptions. But let's say I want to highlight how we're going to do it. And so what I can do is highlight the text here, hit Atlassian Intelligence, and let's say add some ideas for how to approach leveraging social media for a marketing campaign. Interesting. Okay. So we've got something here that we can work with. Let me type that. Let me hit enter again. So we can insert below, or we can replace. It looks like it was trying to put some page breaks in here. So this is pretty good. What we could do though, maybe let's try this and see what happens. Let's say, make this a bulleted list. There, that's a little bit better. So sometimes it'll generate content and you're like, okay, that's fine. That's somewhat of the crux that I want to use of the data here, but you can click replace. And then now you've got a nice bulleted list of potentially actions you could take. Let's just say, jumping down to the comment section here, let's say we want to rephrase some content. I've got a comment here that might be perceived as somewhat snarky. Is anyone reading these? I seem to be having a conversation with myself. So I'll go ahead and hit edit. And then I can highlight this text, hit Atlassian Intelligence. And let's say I want to change this to a more professional tone, maybe. Is anyone reviewing this content? Maybe it's a little bit less snarky, but just showing that you can highlight the text right here within a comment, rephrase it, and change kind of the tone very, very quickly. Let's restructure some content. So going back up to our description here. So let's say we've got our description. Let's hit save so that keeps. And then I'll click into it again. And then let's highlight this block of text here. And let's click on Atlassian Intelligence. And let's say we want a numbered list. Just say make this a numbered list. And there you go. So maybe I want a numbered list, a little bit more sequential. Although that's funny, I'm not sure why it added letters. Let's try that again. Create a numbered list. Let's try that. There we go. And click replace. So maybe something we want to do is more sequential, maybe versus just bulleted high-level ideas. So you can do that as well. So in conclusion, I think I've belabored the point maybe enough here, but we have a much more operable task here for our team. It's much more detailed than what we started with, and it was all done in honestly a matter of seconds, leveraging the power of Atlassian Intelligence ability to create, rephrase, restructure content, etc. So pretty cool. This is something that I see, this is a feature that I think folks will probably lean into or use more often than not in the day-to-day fashion. Kind of jumping to the other extreme, and as a Jira admin myself, a feature that I'm actually pretty excited about, and one that I feel works pretty well overall, is the feature to create automation rules with Atlassian Intelligence. And I found it to actually be shockingly pretty accurate in how it produces results. And so it has the potential for Jira admins to save a lot of time building automation rules. So as you saw, I went up to project settings. And again, this is a Jira work management project. So everything's kind of across the top versus where we typically kind of view things over here on the left pane for a generic software company managed software project. So just noting where I was. So I'm up at project settings. And then this is where I would create a rule in kind of the legacy normal way. And then what I want to do is actually select this create with AI option. And I can tell AI ultimately what I want to do. So just giving you some context, let's say I'm a project manager and it's commonplace that a PM would have a task with subtask children, quote, under those tasks. So let's create a rule that would let a project manager know that all subtasks have been completed, assuming they're watching, and I mean watching the issue in a Jira sense. So they've intentionally gone out and selected that they want to watch an issue. And so let's try this. Let's say when, and I apologize in advance for my elementary typing capabilities here, so just bear with me. Completed. Add a comment to the parent letting the assignee know. Let's try that. Hit enter, see what happens. And as you can see, it's working. We have an ellipses and boom. So just looking at the rule logic here, when it issues transition to done, we've got a branch and we're saying for parent if the subtasks match the specified JQL status equals done, then add a comment to the issue. All subtasks are completed. Please review the parent issue. Pretty cool. And honestly, we see rules like this all the time. Either our clients have built them or we're building them for our clients. But as you can see, in a matter of maybe 5 to 10 seconds, the rules essentially built for us. If we needed to come in here and make just some slight tweaks, we could. But really, ultimately, it gets you there. Now, to that end, there are some cases where Atlassian Intelligence can get you close to creating the rule that you need, but maybe it's not all the way based on the rule's complexity. And I think that's okay. It's still saving us a bunch of time building versus building the rule manually ourselves. So here's an example, hopefully, of just that. So let's return to our templates and let's backspace that. So using our marketing team example, what if you need a marketing asset in Jira labeled a certain way and also assigned a subtask under it by default? So let's make it a little bit more complex. Let's say when an issue type of marketing asset is created and social media is in the issue summary, add the social media label and create a sub task under the same issue with target. I'm just chuckling at how long this is getting. Influencers in the issue summary. I think I actually misspelled influencers, which I did. Maybe that's too new of a word for Google to totally understand. Okay, and let's try, and here's the other thing I want to highlight as well. You can preview the rule, which is kind of neat. But if I just hit enter, let's see what it does. And again, we'll have our Jeopardy music playing in the background. And actually, that was a little bit faster than the last one. So we've got, just look at the rule logic. When issues created is our trigger. Issue type equals marketing asset. That's kind of cool. So it picked up our marketing asset issue type. The summary contains social media. Nice. Then edit the issue fields labels. Social media. Nice. I'll be honest, I think this actually produced the rule better than the last time I ran this rule when I was testing this out prior to this webinar. So kind of neat, actually. That's pretty close. I think where it falls short is creating the subtasks because you have the summaries that need to be filled in here. But again, the idea here is that it gets you 90 to 95% there. You're not having to click through the menu with your triggers, your conditions, your edit issue fields action. And really, honestly, I could come in here and just create the subtask of target influencers issue subtask that I wanted to throw in there, and then click next, and then turn on the rule, and I'm ready to go. So kind of cool. It really does get you about 90% there. And I think ultimately, whether it's 100%, whether it's 95%, which is 80% time, the theme here to take away is that Atlassian Intelligence is saving you a ton of time with these day-to-day kind of tasks. It adds up, as we all know. Okay. Another popular feature I want to hit on is issue search. So AI allows for you to search for issues quickly without having to navigate through the native drop-down issue search that we're all probably familiar with, or you don't necessarily have to even know JQL. So JQL, as maybe you know, is Jira query language, and it's basically similar or adjacent to SQL. And so ultimately with the issue search, functionality, it makes it rather easy to kind of pull things up however you want. It's pretty intuitive. So if I go to AI here, so you notice I click within the UI, and it's even giving an example which epics are in progress, but I'm going to take it maybe a layer further. Let's say all, I didn't mean all caps, shouting at Jira right now, issues assigned to me and are due in the next month. Interesting. So we've got issues that are assigned to me, but then also a time element here. So let's see what happens. I hit enter. Nice. So as you can see, I have a much more honed list. And what honestly I really like, it makes my kind of Jira admin heart sing, is that it gives me the JQL query that would ultimately help me arrive at this conclusion anyway. So let's say you're trying to learn JQL. This is a really great way to do it. You've got your end of month. And honestly, just as a side note, the most nebulous and most difficult part about learning JQL is anything that's time-based or those time-based operators. It gets a little confusing. But yeah, you can see this filter is much more honed. I could save this filter, use it in a dashboard, create a filter on my own, use it in a gadget on a dashboard, or just use it as a filter. And so rather quickly, I've got an option there. Let's go back to our AMC4 issue just briefly. One thing I wanted to point out, there are some features that are still technically in beta, but you have issues, or I'm sorry, functionality like summarize, where you could click summarize and then hypothetically it would give you a summary of all the comments here that are below. And so just know that some of these features are still kind of rolling out. They're still kind of figuring out, how those are ultimately going to work. But as you can see, this one is saying can't provide this response right now. Report or view the support documentation. So just knowing that it's there, Atlassian is very clear and transparent on when something's in beta and when isn't. So just wanted to point that out. And then similarly, too, if I were to highlight this text, you could click Atlassian Intelligence and then ask it to summarize that writing as well. And actually, it works pretty well on the issue description here, which is kind of nice. And so it's a little bit more condensed, kind of gives you the high level, which is kind of nice. All right, let's just jump back to our slideshow. Then I want to talk about Confluence briefly. And I'm so sorry, it looks like it jumped us back here, so bear with me. So I want to talk about some of the features that are coming soon. One of those is generative AI in the editor. So eventually you're going to be able to reference Jira tickets and prompts, which is kind of cool. And then also reformat Jira issue descriptions. And then we've got AI work breakdown. So you'll be able to break down projects into relevant subtasks and child issues, which is kind of interesting. I'm kind of interested to see that, honestly, on a personal level, how that's gonna play out. And then also you'll be able to automatically surface related information like Confluence pages on issues. So all that being stated, keep an eye on the cloud roadmap for when these features are going to be released. All right. As promised, let's go ahead and jump into Confluence. So similar to what I just showed you, this is the within the marketing project, within our Jira work management project, I have an adjoining marketing Confluence space where I want to demo some of the functionality within, or some of the Atlassian Intelligence functionality within Confluence. So similarly to what we saw in Jira, you can prompt, you can rephrase the content, you can restructure it. So let's create some content based on a prompt. This is actually a pretty cool feature. So I'm going to deviate from the idea of a marketing team for a moment and jump to, let's say we're a development team. And we're a development team that's about to jump into Agile Scrum ceremonies. And as a Scrum Master, it might be helpful to have an outline for the ceremonies my team can follow. And I want to document that in Confluence. So imagine you're trying to reach a consensus with other Scrum Masters on how the ceremonies should be conducted. Maybe that's just a hypothetical situation. So as easy as this, I can go in and let's say, just for all intents and purposes, this is my parent page here that I want to create under. I'm just going to go ahead and create a page. And we'll just go ahead into the text box here. And up here at the top right, I've got my writing assistant rather, that's powered by Atlassian Intelligence. And all I need to do is type in something to the tune of provide steps to develop a oh wait, hold on. Let's do this actually instead. I'm jumping ahead to one of my other examples. Let's go here. Create an outline for Scrum ceremonies. Let's see where that gets us. Boom. Wow. Yeah, so right out of the gates, we have a high-level skeletal kind of structure for Scrum ceremonies right here that we can kind of flesh out. So it gives me the outline. I've got sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, sprint retrospective, conclusion. And then I could work with my team to kind of flesh out some more details under these kind of sub-header points here. So I'll click Insert, and then up here I can say, give it a title, and then publish. And I've got a whole page ready to go. And we'll say this is 2.0. Cool. Permission it as needed, and then the page is already created. So I could jump right into my meeting with my other Scrum Masters and start fleshing this out. And that happened all in a matter of seconds. Going back to our marketing team example, and keeping in line with what the space is currently used for. Let's say I need to develop a plan for a grassroots marketing campaign. So I could say create a page, and we can click write, and let's say provide steps to develop a grassroots marketing campaign. Nice. So a little bit more than the outline I got for Scrum ceremonies, I actually have some direction. I not only have the high level bullet points, but I've also got what I need to do, how I need to take action. So even an extra layer of detail there. Give my page a title and click publish. And I have my page ready to go. Pretty neat. Let's talk about rephrasing content. So let me go to our mobile first experience launch page here. And I've got some doom and gloom down here. Why are we doing this? The company has been losing customers over the past 3 years, particularly in the 18 to 35 age bracket. So let's say I want to edit this and maybe change the tone here. So we can highlight and then click change tone. And I have a few different options here. I can click change tone here, professional, empathetic, casual. So let's just try empathetic. Maybe I need to soften it a little bit. And there you go. I could actually replace the text here. So I've got, the company has unfortunately experienced a decline in customer numbers, maybe a little bit softer. And so just showing that you can change kind of the overall tone of what you're saying. Let's go back here. Let's do another example of that. So the dev diary update here. And we have a note here that is basically apologizing to customers for security vulnerability. And let's say I want to change the tone here, and maybe I'm not empathetic enough with this particular message. I can highlight it and then change the tone and then go to empathetic, and it takes all this text into account, and we're even more sorry with our letter that we want to send our constituents. So just highlighting how easy it is to jump in here and start messing with these features and ultimately transform content rather quickly. Let's restructure some of the content. So let me go to, here's some meeting notes that I took, or these are fictional meeting notes, but ultimately Ones that are kind of messy. So a lot of times as folks that are leading engagements, you may not have a note taker, or maybe you don't have AI taking notes for you. And so your notes resemble more chicken scratch, kind of like what mine are resembling here. But maybe, your notes are what they are, but you really just need to get to the heart of what needs to get done from these meeting notes. So you want to pull out some action items. Really cool feature that I've used myself and find really helpful is being able to highlight text and then pull out action items. And so you can actually click the AI button here and then use the Find Action Items button here to pull out action items for what's here. And so we can say insert below, and then we have our action items that are pulled out of these rather messy meeting notes. Kind of neat. Something too that I didn't show before, but if I highlight this, hit right, there's a ton of other options here. You can change the tone, you can summarize the writing, improve it, find action items, suggest a title, make shorter, change tone to empathetic. This kind of goes back to what I was showing you guys earlier, kind of in those quick buttons. There's some translation options, translate to different languages. And you can see there's a bunch of different languages already represented here out of the gates. So just showing that you're not limited to what I've showed you here. I encourage you, if you don't have an instance of Jira, to spin up a demo instance, flip on Atlassian Intelligence, and test some of these features yourself. Let's jump back to our Scrum ceremonies page maybe here. And actually, you know what, maybe a better one would be our grassroots marketing page. So I'm going to highlight some of this. Or actually, you can just click summarize. You don't even have to highlight. If you just click summarize at the top, let's say you're in a pinch and you need to kind of know the cliff notes, you can click summarize here at the top and get a much more condensed version of what you're reading here. And this is presented to you right when you navigate to any page. So this is just something to be aware of. And one thing here too that's really helpful, you have the option to define terms. And so we know what activations means, but if you didn't, you could generate a functional definition for it. Something I noticed earlier that I thought was pretty cool was that it was able to determine campaign in the context, or the word campaign in the context that it's being used within this page. And so if I click on campaign and click define, last time I did this, I actually got a definition. Yeah, a strategic marketing effort. We know the word campaign can mean a lot of different things, but I did note that I thought it was kind of neat that it actually gave me a definition that's germane or particular to the context with which it's being used. So kind of neat, but kind of helpful to be able to define terms on the fly as well. Okay, well, with that, let's jump to coming soon. And kind of what's coming down the pipeline, and I want to pass it over to Joshua. So being able to reference Confluence pages and Jira tickets and prompts, that's coming down the pipeline. There's going to be some readability suggestions that will also be available. AI summaries. So as I mentioned, you kind of saw some of that in beta, but you'll be able to summarize inline comments. And then also page catch-up, kind of understand the recent and important changes in pages. That might be kind of helpful. I know as a Jira admin, a lot of times I'm going into Confluence pages and kind of wanting to know who's edited what. That'll be really, really helpful to kind of pull that to the forefront. AI and whiteboards, I find this one really interesting, and I'm kind of excited to see what's going to happen there. But you'll be able to brainstorm ideas from Confluence pages, Jira tickets, and Jira product discovery insights. And then also organizing group ideas on a whiteboard. So really interested to learn more about that. Honestly, I think that's actually pretty fascinating. There could be a lot of opportunity there. And then also AI content conversion. So being able to convert a whiteboard into a page, which actually sounds really interesting, or convert a page into Jira tickets, which also sounds really interesting. So hold on to your hats. As I mentioned with Jira, keep an eye on the cloud roadmap for when these features are going to be released. All right. Now, with that, I'd like to hand it over to Joshua, who's going to dive into some of the AI features within Jira Service Management, but I think also just going to be speaking about Atlassian Intelligence more holistically from a custom development standpoint. So, Joshua, take it away, sir.
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to go to that JSM slide there. So in Jira Service Management, we have really all the same features that you do in just standard Jira. So when you look at a JSM ticket, you're going to be seeing the same feature set that you got from a Jira issue that we saw Sam walk through earlier. So summarizing, restructuring, rephrasing, all of those things still exist. But where JSM takes us to the next level is with what are called JSM agents. So you may or may not have heard people talking about agents, and agents is kind of a word that exists in the whole AI space. An agent being an AI entity that you can basically communicate with or have take action on behalf of a user or a program or application. So for Jira Service Management, an AI agent or a virtual agent is going to be a way for us to reduce the load on support teams, for example. What we're not trying to do here is replace support teams. What we want to do with things like AI, just generally across the board, is because right now, they're just not going to be, fully featured enough to actually replace a support team. And really, I don't think we want to do that. As professionals working in the space, but also just as humans and trying to talk with people on support calls and trying to get to the human as quickly as possible, right? We don't want to replace the human element in a lot of those support interactions, but where it becomes tedious for those support teams is if you have a small team of 4 or 5 support engineers and thousands of requests coming in, and maybe even 50, 60, 70% of those requests are simple tasks that are really just taking up a lot of time for that small support staff, but don't really require a whole lot of expertise to answer or handle. They just need to be like a quick action taken on their behalf. That's where JSM agents comes into play. And agents are a thing that are continuing to be developed and fleshed out, and you kind of see some early access and beta and kind of a few things that are available publicly as well for JSM agents. But essentially what they're trying to do is reduce that load. Where you can see that image on the right there, I pulled that from one of the Atlassian websites for JSM agents. And these virtual agents are essentially going to take the request from a customer and determine if it can categorize that effectively, and if it can categorize that correctly. So if that confidence is high and it knows, hey, I can categorize this as a request for this tool to do, X action on that tool, and that confidence is high, then it goes to actually complete that action or at least categorize it and put it in a queue where it can be easily accessed later by a human. If the confidence is low, then that gets sent to a person to handle that from the support team that exists. So what you'll be able to see over time is that as you use these agents and as you use this type of tool, all of those things that it has a high confidence of categorizing no longer become a burden on your support team. So in that scenario with like 4 or 5 people on a support team and just, hundreds of requests coming through, if 50% of those requests are just simple questions that can be answered with, a lot of context from the Confluence page, then that JSM virtual agent that might actually have context of the Confluence knowledge base where you're getting that information from can either answer those questions because it can actually have a conversation with the customer as if it were a person. So it can respond to those questions with the context it has from Confluence as a knowledge base. Or it can start to take action to kind of solve some problems that are more simple as we see those features develop over time. And then your support team isn't being replaced, but is being able to spend all of their time on more valuable requests that are more complex. And that way we can get all the different requests handled, but we're able to have our support team focus on the more important ones. So that's AI agents in JSM. But I also want to kind of take us beyond the bounds of what we're seeing in JSM and Jira and Confluence, and just talk a little bit about how this fits into an overall enterprise ecosystem of products. So if we go ahead and go to the next slide, it's really just kind of this title slide of Beyond Work Management. Really just to say that I want to take us a little bit higher level beyond just looking at the tool itself and talk about the implications that Atlassian Intelligence has for an organization of really any size. when we're talking about building an architecture or an ecosystem of products to benefit all of our various teams. If we go ahead and go to the next slide, we're going to see what I'm calling the old way. And what I'm really talking about here is what it would take without Atlassian Intelligence and without any tool like Atlassian Intelligence to create some sort of AI processing within your organization. So this is what you're going to see, super large enterprise clients maybe are going to be trying to do this, and smaller clients or smaller companies and organizations are not even going to be able to approach this problem because of how expensive it can be to actually create this diagram that I'm showing here. But if I kind of walk through what's going on, we've got 3 boxes here, and these 3 boxes are going to show up in a couple different diagrams in a couple next slides as well. The blue one being everything from Atlassian, and the other 2 being custom things that have been developed, where that gray box in the middle is everything AI. So all of the things in the middle in that gray box are things that we're basically asking our internal development teams to create in order to get this sort of AI functionality in the tool set. So, this old way diagram is showing without Atlassian Intelligence, how do we get access to AI insights, AI summaries, AI generative content within our organization? And we do that by creating at that bottom layer of that gray box, that custom data store. So we're going to have to store all the information somewhere, right? So if we're not going to be using something like Atlassian Intelligence, we have to gather all the information, gather all the data, put that into a central location. So now we have a database of some kind, probably, that's storing all the data we want to use for AI. Then we also have to have some sort of custom app that's going to be sending and receiving prompts. So if we're not using a tool like Atlassian Intelligence, we need to create something where we can, actually type in the prompt, we can highlight content, we can do all those things that Sam was showing in the tool directly. We need a custom app and interface to be able to actually do that on top of that data we're storing in that database. And then we need to go and do AI prompting and processing somewhere else. And this could be a in-house model. It could also be sending it to OpenAI the same way that Atlassian Intelligence does. But we can see just as I'm going through this, and the details are really less important than the bigger picture of this is a lot of work. This is a lot of time spent. There's a lot of money spent on building this process. And it's also a lot of maintenance over time. And the other part of this is that you can see that all this data, in order to get access to these AI insights, is having to leave the Atlassian world. And that green section over on the right as well are things like custom apps and external data sources. And these are things that are totally separate from Atlassian that we've either built within our organization or other tools that we might use within our organization as well. So like financial reporting tools, other issue trackers that we might have kind of some coexistence going on. There's a lot of things that we use in an organization beyond just Atlassian tools. And we're pulling all of our data from all those places and putting them in this central database, which means that now we have this burden on that central location of handling security and handling all of that data in the best possible way to make sure that we're not, exposing extra vulnerabilities by pulling all this data out and putting it into some other location. So we've opened up a lot of holes here. And at the end of the day, we don't even have the same benefit as Atlassian Intelligence with that direct integration of just highlighting content on an issue or in a Confluence page and being able to actually, use AI to process through that. So that's kind of the old way. Let's go to the next slide now. And this is with Atlassian Intelligence. So this is kind of the next step. This is exactly what Sam was walking through. So this is just out of the box Atlassian Intelligence. We no longer need that gray box, all the AI stuff, handling that internally and having our own way to do AI. That goes away. No more burden of security that is on us as a team. That goes to Atlassian and Atlassian's process for handling security. So as long as we, have knowledge, which we do, because Atlassian is very, forthright about their security mindset. We have knowledge of what's going on there, and we can trust that that's going to be handled securely. It's not a burden on our teams. Now, what you'll notice that here is that we have that direct integration back. So everything that Sam walked through exists in this diagram where we can, highlight content, we can access content, we can just, create that generative content or use searching. All these different things exist. And searching is really a big one because searching through content, through a knowledge base is really important. That searching exists directly in the tool because now we're not building our own version of AI processing. What we also are going to come across here, though, is that in the out of the box mindset, that green box is no longer connected. So like I was saying before, an organization of really any size is going to have more than just one type of tool. Jira or Confluence or Jira Align, whatever you're going to be using, it's not the only thing that exists in our organization. It's not the only process in our organization. And there are lots of things that we need to kind of bring together to build the overall, AI architecture that we want to build just across the organization. If we want to really be using AI to its fullest, accessing that information, accessing that data, and getting really helpful insights. We want to be able to use everything across the whole org, not just a subset of it from the Atlassian space. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to be talking about how to essentially reconnect that green box. And we do that with what's called Forge. I'm not going to go crazy in depth with Forge here because we don't have, the time for that. And because we actually do have other content out there, we have trainings and some probably some upcoming webinars. We will potentially have some more content you'll be able to see. And if you reach out to me, we can also talk a lot more in depth about what Forge can accomplish for you. But Forge is the developer platform that comes from Atlassian for the Atlassian Cloud suite of products. So when you build a custom app, when you build an add-on, when you build any custom tooling, custom UI, all these different things that you might want to do within Atlassian tools, you do those things with Forge based on the newest, most up-to-date features and most up-to-date guidelines from Atlassian. So Forge is a tool that allows us to connect all of these different pieces, and we will be able to kind of then reattach that green box with our custom applications and external sources. And really what this allows you to do is, and we've done this across the board, I'll show an example here in a second, where you can take data from non-Atlassian tools, from applications outside of Jira and Confluence and all these different pieces. We can pull that data in and use it to supplement the data set that we have access to with Atlassian Intelligence. So those searching features, those summarizing features, restructuring, rephrasing, these are all helpful things beyond just the context of Jira and Confluence. So using Forge to connect to external services, using it to be able to take data from some other tool, bring it into the Atlassian space, and then use Atlassian Intelligence to gain insights off of that, gives us a lot of power out of this system. And it gets us back to the same benefit we had from what I called the old way in that first slide, where it's not just Atlassian products, it's everything across the whole organization that we can have AI insights on top of. We can use Atlassian Intelligence to accomplish the same goal by utilizing other Atlassian products like Forge to bring in that external data and supplement that data set. I want to show an example of how we've done this internally. If you go to the next slide, we should see an example here of an application that we've essentially done this with. So we call this Fleet Manager. It's the Valiantis Fleet Manager. This is an application that we built for a major auto manufacturer. You're seeing the UFO fleet version because it's kind of our demo. It's kind of a fun one to look at. This is an entirely custom application that is built on top of Atlassian data and infrastructure. So behind the scenes, all the data here is using JSM assets, and it's also using some Jira tickets to handle that. So we're actually utilizing Jira, JSM, Confluence, all these different parts of the Atlassian cloud ecosystem. We're utilizing those things to build a custom application where somebody who's interacting with the fleet manager might not really care that they're using Jira behind the scenes. They just care that they can go to this fleet manager application, and essentially they are going to be presented with a bunch of different vehicles in a fleet, and they can hit the reserve button and they'll be able to reserve that vehicle in the fleet. So the end user just cares that they can do that. But from the data perspective, we've stored all of that data within JSM assets and with Jira tickets. So what that means is that, first of all, from a database management perspective, a Jira admin or some sort of Atlassian administrator can handle all of the database administration for this application, which means that you now lower the cost on infrastructure because we're also hosting this using Forge within Atlassian servers. But on top of all of that, back to the context of this webinar, we now have Atlassian Intelligence built right into what we're doing with this application. So we have JSM assets and we have Jira tickets, and we have service requests. Also, when you reserve one of these vehicles, is going to create a service request that's going to say, hey, I want to reserve this UFO, for example. So what we can do then is use AI search. So we can go to the search bar and we can say, hey, I want to find all the reservations for this vehicle, and it'll return all the ones that match that vehicle. Or we can use all of our other features like JSM agents. When you tie this into JSM agents as well, now we can even have a JSM agent that was handling the actual reservation of that vehicle. So when you make the request to reserve a vehicle, now the agent is going to be able to actually handle that request and take the burden off of your staff that way. So just showing an example of where we have done this and integrated AI using Atlassian Intelligence across an entire organization. We can go ahead and go to the next slide there, Sam. This is just another example showing of that image. It's the same application. These are the actual tickets themselves. So this is where you can see like all of these are actually issues that are being created and being stored. So we're storing those in service management, and we are going to have AI be able to search, summarize, and automate interactions, as well as these features get added to Atlassian Intelligence, we're going to be able to go further beyond what we can even do as of today. If you want to go to the next slide there, Sam. The last thing I want to really talk about here is Rovo. So you may or may not have heard the word Rovo thrown around in different places. I actually did a webinar on Rovo, a little bit ago now, and Rovo is going to be basically an additional product on top of Atlassian Intelligence. It builds on the same set of features, but what it allows you to do is Rovo, where JSM agents are basically creating like customer-facing actions and acting as a service representative. Rovo is going to allow you to have a teammate that is basically an AI teammate on your team. So if you think about AI as a teammate alongside your teams, that's where Rovo comes in. Rovo is going to be able to take actions on behalf of a user. So you can use Rovo like a chatbot experience, but also with automations, also with different interactions, and automate a lot of things in the instance. So Rovo is not currently in GA, but it's being worked on and will be in GA soon, and we'll be able to see features here with Rovo kind of develop into a fully featured suite of products where Rovo sits on top of Atlassian Intelligence and allows us to have not only those AI insights and summaries and those outward facing things like JSM agents. Rovo is going to allow you to have that AI teammate alongside you to help automate a lot of those parts of the process. All right, so that's basically it for me. I want to pass it back to Sam to talk a little bit about our upcoming webinars, but thank you for kind of letting me go through the custom solution side of things, and hopefully you see some of the value of Atlassian Intelligence and AI kind of going across the organization, allowing us to get some of that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joshua. Yeah, just real quick, wanted to mention, or at least highly suggest you guys visit our YouTube channel. That's actually where you can view previous webinars that we've conducted, just like the one Joshua referenced concerning Rovo. That's out there, as well as webinars for a myriad of other different topics like Jira Align, Jira Service Management, you name it. There's a lot out there. So I highly encourage you to visit our YouTube page, and also visit our events calendar just to see what's coming up. So our events calendar will have anything and everything that I just mentioned kind of on the front end of the presentation when it comes to our boot camps, when it comes to our free content like our webinars, etc. So highly suggest that you go out to our website, which I believe Brianna, if she hasn't already, will share our link to our website and our class kind of schedule coming up. And also, too, I wanted to mention there is and I believe I have it open here, a really exciting new event that involves chocolate and a product called Loom. So if you attended, whether in person or virtually, Teams this year, and I mean Atlassian Teams, which is huge, big event in Las Vegas, where they kind of make big announcements for the year, big announcements within the ecosystem. One of those was that Atlassian acquired Loom. And so the big value add with Loom is that it helps companies and organizations that kind of work in a dispersed, asynchronous format. And so we have a wonderful chocolate tasting event with our experts, and then also where Loom will be kind of the belle of the ball, so to speak. And so I highly encourage you to sign up for this event. It's on October 1st. We'll share the link to registration within the chat. This may not actually be in our website right now. It's hot off the press. So we'll share the link, and then just know that it'll eventually be up on our website as well. But I wanted to mention that. All right. Well, with that, I've got our contact information on the screen right now. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. And I'm just peeking real quick to see if we have any questions in the Q&A. And it looks like we've already answered one. Thank you so much for that question about Jira pricing on that one. Please feel free, if there are any questions after we conclude today, don't hesitate to reach out. Take note of our email addresses here. We'd love to chat with you about Atlassian Intelligence and Atlassian tools, custom development, all the things that we talked about today after the call. Greatly appreciate all of your time today, folks. Again, thank you so much. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for your attention.